There will be options brought to your section shortly.
She moved away before I could respond. I felt heat rise in my chest. Not anger yet, but something close to it. A tightness. A warning. Graham reached out and rested his hand lightly on Caleb's shoulder.
"It's okay, buddy," he said gently. "We'll wait." I studied my husband as he spoke. His expression was relaxed, almost pleasant. But I recognized the subtle signs, the way his shoulders squared, the way his eyes tracked movement in the room with quiet precision. He wasn't offended. He was assessing. A few minutes later, a server arrived at our table with a small tray, 2 plain rolls, no butter, no explanation. "That's it?" Caleb asked before he could stop himself. The server hesitated. "It's what was approved for this section," she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. Approved. I swallowed hard. Around us, laughter rose and fell, punctuated by the clink of glassware and the soft murmur of people who never had to ask permission to eat. I leaned closer to Graham. "This is ridiculous," I whispered. He didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "Not yet." I looked at him. He met my eyes for just a second, long enough for me to understand. This wasn't the moment. But it was being recorded. And somewhere inside that elegant room, a line had just been crossed. Ivy excused herself quietly, slipping away from the table without drawing attention. She didn't ask permission. She never did when she felt overwhelmed. I watched her go, her blue dress disappearing into the crowd, and told myself she just needed a minute. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The music shifted, the tempo rising, laughter growing louder as wine loosened tongues. I tried to focus on Caleb, on keeping him distracted, but a familiar unease crept into my chest. "I'm going to check on Ivy," I said, already standing. That was when I saw her. She was walking back toward us from the hallway near the restrooms, but her steps were slow, careful. Her shoulders were drawn inward, arms wrapped tightly around herself as if she were bracing against something cold. My heart dropped. "Ivy?" I whispered, reaching her just as she slid into her chair. She shook her head, eyes fixed on the table. Her lips pressed together, fighting something back. Ivy didn't cry easily. She held things in until they hurt. "Honey," I said softly, kneeling beside her. "Talk to me." Her voice came out thin. "Can we go home?" The words hit me harder than anything else that night. "What happened?" I asked. She swallowed. "Some girls, by the hallway. They looked at my dress, then at my shoes." I glanced down. Her flats were simple, soft leather, well cared for. Nothing flashy, nothing cheap. They asked if they were from a donation bin. She continued, blinking fast. "They said people here don't wear things that old." Something inside me went very still. Before I could respond, heels clicked against the floor behind us. Serena. "Oh my," she said, her voice sweet and loud enough to attract attention. "Is everything all right?" I straightened slowly. "We're fine." She knelt beside Ivy, perfectly composed. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Ivy hesitated, then whispered, "They made fun of my shoes." Serena's eyes flicked down, just for a fraction of a second, then softened. "Oh, darling," she said. "Children here are raised differently. Their parents have certain
expectations.
She stood, smoothing her dress.
Honestly, Nora, this is what I worried about. The environment can be a shock if children aren't exposed to it regularly.
The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be.
Around us, people were listening, and I knew, with painful clarity, that this wasn't just about a gala anymore. This was about my child. Serena's words lingered in the air, polished and poisonous. Exposure matters, she continued lightly, as if offering helpful advice. Proper settings, appropriate presentation, it saves everyone from discomfort. I felt Ivy's fingers tighten around mine.
That was it. I stood slowly, my chair scraping softly against the floor.
The sound cut through the nearby conversation, drawing glances our way. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. We're leaving, I said. Serena blinked, then smiled, relieved, almost triumphant. That's probably for the best, she replied, her tone carrying just far enough to be overheard. This event represents our donors, our partners. We do have an image to maintain. Image. She gestured vaguely around the room, then added with a faint laugh, After all, this venue is under my name, my responsibility. My house, without saying it. Caleb looked up at me, confused. Ivy didn't say anything. She just stood when I helped her, eyes down, trusting me completely. Graham rose beside me. The shift was subtle, but it was unmistakable. His posture straightened, his expression smoothing into something calm and distant. The room seemed to quiet around him, conversations tapering off as if people sensed a change before they understood it. Serena noticed too. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Evan finally appeared then, pushing through the crowd, his face flushed. What's going on? He asked, glancing between us. Why are you leaving?
I looked at my brother, the way he stood beneath chandeliers he thought belonged to him, and felt a deep, tired sadness. It's fine, I said quietly. We don't belong here. Serena touched his arm. Let them go, she murmured. We have guests to attend to. Graham's hand closed around mine.
As we turned toward the exit, I heard Serena call out brightly behind us. Drive safe! Graham stopped walking. He didn't turn around. Instead, he reached into his jacket and took out his phone. Actually, he said calmly, his voice carrying through the hall. Before we go, there's something we should clear up. And in that moment, I knew. This night was far from over. The room seemed to hold its breath as Graham stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look at Serena. He simply glanced at Evan, then at the event coordinator hovering near the stage. Evan, Graham said calmly, do you remember the name of the foundation underwriting tonight's gala? My brother frowned. What? Why does that matter right now? Just answer the question, Graham replied, his tone polite but immovable. Evan hesitated. I think it's Northline Cultural Trust. Serena handled most of that. Graham nodded and lifted his phone, tapping the screen once. That trust reports to Hale Strategic Giving, which reports to me. A ripple moved through the crowd. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Someone near the bar set a glass down too hard. Serena laughed lightly. That's not funny, Graham. He finally looked at her then. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with something colder. Clarity. I agree, he said. It isn't. He turned back to the coordinator, Effective immediately. Hale Strategic Giving is withdrawing its sponsorship from this event.
Per Clause 8, subsection C. That includes venue coverage, catering guarantees, and donor matching.
The coordinator's face drained of color. Sir, that would... Shut this down. Graham finished. You're out of compliance. A stunned silence fell. Evan stared at him. You're joking, he said weakly. You can't just... This is my life. Graham stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough that only those nearest could hear. Your life has been subsidized, Evan. Your condo, your car lease, your club membership. All routed through charitable offsets approved under my name. My brother staggered back, as if the floor had shifted beneath him. No, that's not... Serena? She didn't answer. Her mouth opened, then closed. Graham straightened and addressed the room, not loudly but clearly. Tonight was meant to celebrate generosity, he said. Instead, it became a demonstration of entitlement, of how easily people confuse appearance with worth. His eyes returned briefly to Ivy, standing quietly beside me. True wealth, he continued, isn't about who you exclude. It's about who you protect. No one moved. No one spoke. Serena's face had gone rigid, her carefully constructed poise cracking at the edges. Graham took my hand. As of now, he said calmly, this event is no longer funded. He turned toward the exit, and behind us, the illusion collapsed, silently, completely, and all at once. The night air felt different the moment we stepped outside. Cooler, lighter, real. Behind us, the venue still glowed with polished light, but whatever power it held no longer touched us. Graham opened the car door for the kids first. Caleb climbed in, eyes wide, still buzzing from what he'd witnessed. Ivy settled beside him, quiet but steady, her earlier tension already easing. As we pulled away, she broke the silence. Dad? She asked softly. Are we richer than Serena? I turned in my seat, watching her face in the passing streetlights. She wasn't proud. She wasn't curious in a shallow way. She was trying to understand. Graham met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Real wealth, he said gently, isn't something you announce. It's something you use, only when it matters. She nodded, absorbing that. The road stretched ahead, dark and familiar, leading us back to a life that didn't need chandeliers or approval to feel solid. I reached for Graham's hand, and he squeezed back, quiet, certain. That night, we didn't leave with apologies or explanations. We left with our children's dignity intact. And that was more than enough. My name is Nora Bennett, and looking back now, I can say I should have recognized the warning signs the moment the invitation arrived. We left Asheville, North Carolina just after dawn. The mountains faded behind us as the highway stretched long and quiet ahead. Graham drove the entire way, relaxed, one hand steady on the wheel, the other tapping lightly to an old song playing on the radio. He always carried himself like that, calm, unhurried, as if the world had very little power to rush him. In the back seat, Caleb, 8 years old and endlessly curious, asked every half hour if we were close. Ivy, 10, gently told him to be patient without ever lifting her eyes from the book in her hands. She's always been observant like that, quiet, thoughtful, noticing far more than she lets on. I had chosen our clothes carefully, not to impress anyone, but to avoid standing out in the wrong way. Ivy wore a soft blue dress I'd found at a carefully curated secondhand boutique. Classic lines, excellent fabric, the kind of piece that lasts. Caleb wore his favorite polo shirt, slightly wrinkled from the drive. Graham had on his familiar dark jacket, simple and understated, worn so often it felt like part of him. The invitation from my younger brother Evan read, Autumn Charity Gala, Lake Forest, Illinois. Not a family gathering. Not casual. An event. As we neared Lake Forest, the scenery changed. Wide streets, perfect lawns. Homes that looked less lived in and more displayed. The kind of place where wealth announced itself quietly but unmistakably. That's when the feeling settled in my chest. Not fear, not insecurity. Something sharper. A sense that this wasn't just a visit. It was a test. Graham's eyes flicked briefly over the surroundings, taking everything in. He didn't say a word, but I knew that look. He was already observing, already cataloging details the way he always did. When the venue finally appeared, glass, lights, polished stone, I felt it clearly then. There are places that don't need to say you don't belong. They simply let you feel it. And deep down, I knew this night would be about far more than a charity gala. The venue looked like something pulled from a glossy magazine, glass walls glowing from within, valet attendants in crisp black suits, soft music floating into the parking lot like a promise. As soon as we stepped inside, the air changed. Cooler, sharper, heavier. A woman with a tablet intercepted us before we'd taken 3 steps.
Names?
She asked, already scrolling.
Nora Bennett, I said. This is my husband, Graham Hale. Our children. Her fingers paused, just for a second.
Not long enough to be rude, but long enough to register. Her smile shifted, tightening at the corners. Ah, yes, of course. She reached under the table and handed us 4 wristbands. Pale gray. Around us, other guests wore black and gold bands, subtle, elegant, different. This way, please, she said, already turning. She led us down a side corridor instead of toward the main hall. The lights were dimmer here, the carpet softer, quieter underfoot. We passed double doors opening into a space filled with laughter, champagne flutes, and the low hum of practiced confidence. Caleb tugged gently at my sleeve. Mom, why are we going this way? Just follow me, sweetheart, I whispered. The coordinator stopped near the back of the room, close to the service doors and far from the stage. You'll be seated here, she said, gesturing to a table partially obscured by a decorative partition. Enjoy the evening. And just like that, she was gone. I scanned the room instinctively, searching for Evan. I spotted him near the center, perfect suit, relaxed posture, drink in hand. He was laughing with a group of people who looked effortlessly expensive. Our eyes met. For a brief moment, I expected him to wave, to smile, to come over. Instead, his expression flickered, something like discomfort, and then he looked away. I felt my stomach tighten. Graham pulled out my chair, unhurried, polite, as if nothing were out of place. He helped Ivy and Caleb settle in, then sat beside me. His posture relaxed. But I knew better. He was watching everything. Mom? Ivy whispered, her voice careful. Are we supposed to sit back here? I forced a smile. It's fine. But we both knew it wasn't. The wristbands weren't about logistics. The seating wasn't about space. It was a message. And someone had decided exactly where we belonged. From our table, the gala unfolded like a carefully choreographed performance we weren't meant to join. Waiters passed by with trays of champagne and delicate appetizers, their paths curving naturally toward the center of the room, toward the guests with black and gold wristbands. Our corner received glances, not service. No one was openly rude. That was the clever part. Everything here was done with elegance, including exclusion. I was still watching Evan across the room when a ripple of attention moved through the crowd. Serena Vale had arrived. She didn't rush. She glided, tall, poised, wearing a dress the color of champagne foam, her hair smooth and perfect, her smile calibrated to the room. People turned toward her instinctively, like flowers following light. When she reached our table, she paused, eyes flicking briefly to our gray wristbands before lifting to my face.
"Nora,"
she said warmly,
"I'm so glad you could make it."
Her tone suggested effort, sacrifice. "This must have been quite the trip from Asheville," she continued.
"Such a peaceful place."
"Very removed from all this." She gestured vaguely toward the room. "It's home," I replied. "Oh, of course." She smiled wider. "Some people really value simplicity." Her gaze drifted to Ivy's dress. "Vintage?" she asked lightly. "How charming. You don't see that much here. Everyone's obsessed with what's new." Ivy shifted slightly in her chair. "It's well made," I said. "That's what matters to us." Serena nodded, as if indulging a child. "Of course. Priorities are everything." She turned just as a small group approached, clearly drawn by her presence. Serena gestured toward me with her champagne flute. "This is Evan's sister," she said pleasantly. "They live a quieter life. Very grounded." The word landed softly, strategically. The guests smiled politely, eyes sliding over us before losing interest. One of them murmured something about different lifestyles. That's when Graham spoke. "My wife manages regional programs with 7-figure budgets," he said calmly. "Quiet doesn't mean slow." Serena's smile tightened, barely. "Well," she said lightly, "passion comes in many forms." She excused herself moments later, already reclaiming the room. As she walked away, I felt it clearly then. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't misunderstanding. It was deliberate. And Graham, silent, observant, had seen it too. Part 4. Small rules, quiet humiliation. After Serena left, the space around our table felt even emptier, as if her presence had temporarily legitimized us, and her absence erased us again. Caleb's legs swung under his chair, restless. "Mom," he whispered, "when do we eat?" "I think soon," I said, though I wasn't sure. The scent of food drifted toward us. Warm bread, something rich and buttery. I followed it with my eyes and saw the main refreshment area near the center of the hall. Guests gathered easily there, laughing, plates already half full. Caleb slid off his chair. "Can I go get something?" Before I could answer, a woman in a tailored black dress stepped between him and the aisle. She smiled politely, professionally. "I'm sorry," she said, glancing at his wristband. "That station is reserved for our primary guests." Caleb froze, confusion flickering across his face. "I'm hungry," he said softly. "I understand," she replied, still smiling.